World of Warcraft has been the king of the MMO business for over 20 years now, and in my opinion, rightfully so. The game is really good, it's extremely fun, and has captivated millions of players for years, even decades. Over the years, there have always been so-called MMO killers like, for example, Lord of the Rings Online, Guild Wars, whatever, but no game has managed to dethrone WoW, not even Final Fantasy Online. But now, there's a bold challenge to Blizzard, as the developers of another MMO are saying, we want to become #1 in the MMO business within 5 years. Which game this is about and what statements were made, we'll take a look at in this video. Just so you know, I'll be looking over at the right monitor from time to time because that's where my notes about this whole story are, or rather, that's where I've written down what I want to say about it. But yeah, let's take a look at the whole thing. And actually, this is about an MMO that's not new. In fact, it's actually even older than World of Warcraft. We'll take a look at what was said in this video. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe. That would really support me. And all in all, I'll say this in advance. Personally, I don't believe in it. But in and of itself, I wouldn't say competition is a bad thing. Because yes, if Blizzard has competition from other games, in the end, they're forced to step up their game. You can see, for example, with FIFA, what happens when a game no longer has any competition, so I think it's a good thing. It's about that particular game here. RuneScape. Honestly, I've never had any contact with RuneScape. I've seen people play it from time to time, but I have absolutely no idea about it myself. There are currently several versions: old school RuneScape, OSRS, which basically has the look of the really original RuneScape. The game turns 25 this year, so it's already got quite a few years under its belt, and that's kind of the RuneScape Classic version, if I understood it correctly. So the old gameplay experience is still playable, and what's special is that there are apparently still regular content updates for it. According to several sources, the player numbers for old school RuneScape are said to reach up to 60,000 concurrent players. Depending on the time of day, during peak times, usually in the evenings, there are up to 180,000 people online every day. And then there's RuneScape 3, which you can see here. That's basically the new version of RuneScape. There are about 15,000 to 20,000 concurrently active players per day. And yeah, all in all, to be honest, I wouldn't have thought that especially this old school version would attract so many people. I've only seen a bit of gameplay from it. That wouldn't be my thing at all. And you can see here as well, if you take a look at it, RuneScape already looks quite a bit different from what we know and are used to from World of Warcraft. At first glance, it wouldn't be my thing, but apparently it's still relatively popular. And yes, as I said, here we had an announcement and it was from Jagex. I don't know how to pronounce the company's name, but in the end, they're the creators of RuneScape, and they gave an interview on the channel The Game Business. Here we see the CEO, John Bellamy. He made these statements and said that they want to surpass World of Warcraft within the next 5 years. That's an ambitious statement. He also claims that RuneScape is currently the second largest MMO on the market, which I also find interesting. I thought Final Fantasy was bigger, but apparently the player numbers have actually gone down a lot. Also, you always have to say these aren't official numbers from the publisher, but here we supposedly had 1 million players per month. If you calculate that per day, RuneScape would actually have more players with both versions in total. But as I said, the way they measure this isn't fully reliable. And you would have to assume that it's true that RuneScape has that many distinct players per day in the hundreds of thousands. That's why personally I believe Final Fantasy is still bigger, but let's just accept it for now. Otherwise, he just says, our dream is not to be the second biggest MMO brand in the world, but to be number one. Between us and number one, which is World of Warcraft, there's still a big gap. But if we do everything right, we know we can close that gap. So he's aware that World of Warcraft still has a big lead, but he's also confident that they can manage to close that gap as a team. At the same time, he says that the whole thing is very, very ambitious. But if you're already setting ambitious goals, why not reach for the big prize? And he says that's the most important goal. And I have to say, so looking at it neutrally, I can kind of understand that statement. So when you play soccer or do anything else, even if you know, hey, I'll never be a Bundesliga player, but nobody sits down and says, yeah, I want to be second this season or third or fourth. Instead, you tell yourself, hey, we want to win. Whether that's realistic or not is another question. But of course, the mindset makes a big difference, right? If you approach it positively with a big goal in mind, I think you're more ambitious and can get more out of the whole thing. So, whether it's realistic or not, I have no idea. But from a business perspective, I think it wouldn't have gone over well with his employees if he had said, yeah, we'll always be behind World of Warcraft, right? You really have to say that. Like I said, the game is celebrating its 25th anniversary this year. And they keep developing the whole thing further and further. For example, apparently there's going to be a new raid for it soon. I find that very interesting. And according to Bellamy, the average daily playtime for old school RuneScape is 5 hours. And, well, I also think that's really high that supposedly the players play that much on average every day. Many, no idea. He then says here, that he loves the game himself, and for example, when he's working, he's fishing in the background. He says there are millions of people who have Excel open on one screen and old school RuneScape on the other, and you have to design for this reality, and that's exactly what we're doing. Apparently, they want to reach people there. And in the end, they've also set up a better foundation to let RuneScape grow again. He says that setting the course for growth is not the same as expecting growth to happen just because you set the course. You have to put something on the table to attract people. For example, they themselves removed monetization and got rid of annoying content in the game that pissed people off. He also says the head of RuneScape has been there for 13 years and has been playing the game himself for 20 years. And he says, yeah, that the ones who are now making the decisions to bring the game back to life are the ones who have been playing the game themselves from the very beginning. And even there, I would say that's not necessarily the worst basic requirement. Yeah, to let your MMO grow. Like I said, very ambitious goals. Whether it works out in the end, we will see. But what do you think about this whole story? Do you think that old school RuneScape or RuneScape in general can catch up to World of Warcraft? Would you play the game? And what would it take for you to play the game? And I have to be completely honest, I've tried out other MMOs from time to time in the past, but for me, there's nothing that would make me want to play a different MMO. I've invested too much in WoW for that. I have too many items and so on. I just wouldn't want to start from scratch in another MMO. That would just feel wrong somehow. But all right. All right. Feel free to write your opinion in the comments. And with that, thanks for watching. See you in the next video and take care.